Yuji and Sukuna are polar opposites and yet two sides of the same coin, and their stark differences are manifested in how they wield jujutsu. So let's talk about it, but spoilers if you're not caught up through chapter 258 of the manga. And now with that spoiler warning out of the way, what I want to talk about is Yuji awakening Sukuna's curse technique, Shrine. How it's different from what we've seen Sukuna use and why it's different. So when Yuji awakens Shrine and uses a slashing attack for the first time, it's completely different from how we've seen Sukuna use this for the entire story. Gege denotes it with these little scissor icons, and that's because even though they have the exact same technique, they are complete opposites. So their worldview, their interpretation of how this technique would interact with the world is going to take a completely different shape. And this is no foreign concept to JJK. This is something Gege has been harping on from early on in the manga. Basically, how you interpret the world determines how you interact with the world. And one of the most prominent examples is this conversation between Kenjaku and Mahito, where they're arguing about the soul and the body. Mahito thinks that the soul came before the body, but Kenjaku thinks the body is the soul. And they have a little argument here and basically come to the conclusion that they each feel this way because of their own lived experience, which is probably because of their curse techniques, right? Mahito's dealing with the soul, Kenjaku's dealing with the body. And they basically say, well, maybe it doesn't have to be the same for everyone. Maybe we each live in different worlds based on our own interpretation of it. I like that. It's poetic. And when it comes to differing worldviews, who could be more different than Sukuna and Yuji? They are literally polar opposites, foils of one another, and twins. Not literally, but basically, so we're just going to say that, right? Sukuna views the world as his plaything, right? He is extremely selfish. He eats when he wants to eat. He just fulfills his own desires and throws everything else away, right? Yuji, on the other hand, is selfless. Basically, everything he does is for other people. He wants to lift other people up even at the expense of himself. One of the reasons Sukuna just straight up hates him, right? Because he thinks Yuji is just weak and stands for all of the wrong things. So of course, the same curse technique in each of their hands is going to be vastly different. When Sukuna uses slashes, they are absolutely brutal. He has no regard for the people he's using them on because he is fighting for his own pleasure. He is brutal. He is gruesome, and so his technique reflects that. But not only does it reflect his character, but also the era he's from, right? The Heian era, the golden age of sorcery, where Sukuna probably most associated slashes with weapons and war. So that's why when he manifests this technique, it looks this way. Whereas Yuji in the modern era, not consumed with warfare, when he thinks of cutting, he thinks of scissors. But it goes beyond just this aesthetic difference, right? Where Sukuna was wild with the slashes, Yuji is careful and considerate. He denotes where he's going to cut before he does because he wants to make sure he's hitting the right thing. He doesn't want any collateral damage, if you will. And I'm not saying like literally in this scene there was collateral damage or anything to worry about, but it just speaks to Yuji's mindset in general. He is a surgeon with the slashes compared to Sukuna the butcher. In Sukuna's hands, we have only seen this technique wreak havoc and destruction, but what may Yuji accomplish with it? Could he perhaps use that surgical precision to split Megami's soul from Sukuna's and help to save his friend? And on top of that, what might the reversal of cleave and dismantle be? Now, that question may not make sense because there's still too much about Shrine we don't understand, but if we assume that cleave and dismantle, that specific aspect of Shrine, does have a reversal, then why haven't we ever seen Sukuna use it? And yes, it could just be because Gege largely moved away from reversals. I think we've only ever seen 2 in the entire series, but it could be because Sukuna just doesn't see the value in the reversal of cleave and dismantle. And the fact that cleave and dismantle literally break things apart, slice them up, then perhaps the reversal would be putting things back together, right? And knowing Sukuna's mindset, knowing his character, it would make sense why he could never see value in that, right? But Yuji definitely could. So he may be the one that will show us what the reversal of this is. Now, there's still a lot we don't know about the Shrine technique, and I've got theories on it. You can check those out if you want to. But all we do know for sure right now is that this fire arrow is a part of it. And when Sukuna summons this, he says basically the equivalent of kitchen stove or kitchen hearth furnace open. So continuing with this theme of the kitchen and cooking, right? The slashes being dicing up the food, the fire to cook it, right? And so similarly to how Yuji's scissors are vastly different from Sukuna's slashes, what may Yuji's fire arrow look like? Again, if it's a modern, more controlled interpretation, I'm very curious to see. Microwave open. And then, of course, if/when we see Yuji cast a domain expansion, I cannot wait to see the differing interpretation of Shrine there. And finally, I want to give a special shout out to a couple of sponsored questions that inspired this video. First up from Vinegar here, which inspired the majority of this video, wanted me to talk about, now that Yuji has Shrine, what do I think its theme will be and why the differences with these scissors as cleave. And then here we have Bean Boy Hank, who wanted to know what I think the reversal of Shrine could be and if it might be related to regurgitation. So this is where we get into the weeds of not fully knowing how Shrine operates, because again, does cleave and dismantle have a reversal, or would Shrine as a whole, whatever exactly that is, have the reversal? And so if Shrine is related to this, kind of kitchen cooking theme, then the overall reversal of that I could see being, regurgitation in that way, which would certainly be interesting. I don't really know how I would picture that, like, working mechanically. Healing is definitely kind of in the same vein of what I was saying for cleave and dismantle, where, split things apart and then bring them back together. So I could see that, like, vibe, if you will, but I don't think it will, like, literally be healing like in the same way RCT is. And I'm not saying that's what you're saying, but I do think thematically it will kind of be on that level, like I spoke to, and that might be why we've never seen Sukuna use it, because he doesn't see the value in it, right? And the only thing I could really think of when I was trying to piece together like what use case we could see for this is, we talked about how souls can never truly combine except maybe with Mahito's influence. Well, it would certainly be interesting if the reversal of cleave dismantle or the reversal of Shrine, whatever it is, could bring two souls to fully come together. Now, what would the use for that be? Perhaps if Sukuna does get like back within Yuji, then Yuji could use that to like literally fuse the two of their souls together and then get taken out as a way to fully end Sukuna. Now, would that specific nuanced step be necessary because that's never been mentioned before? I don't know, but it was the only thing I could even like theoretically think of to make like a compelling use for bringing two things together. And, it kind of makes sense with like the different bullet points that have been brought up, like that whole souls can't combine thing that I was just talking about. So I don't know, basically any idea is a good idea at this point because there's so much we don't know. So I would love to hear all of y'all's thoughts on this, not only on what the reversal could be, but, on everything I touched on in this video. So thank you guys both so much for the support. And as always, thank you guys for watching.